Greetings and welcome to the final America in Focus of 2023. America in Focus is powered by the Center Square. I'm Dan McCaleb, Vice President of News and Content at the Franklin News Foundation, publisher of the Center Square Newswire service. Joining me again today is the Center Square's Washington, D.C. Bureau Chief, Casey Harper. Casey, since I was out last week, a belated Merry Christmas to you and your family and a Happy New Year.
Same to you, Dan. Hope you enjoyed the time off. This working every other week thing, how's that going for you?
I think you got that confused, Casey. That's your stick.
Oh, am I projecting? I'm projecting. I'm sorry.
Yes, that's not mine. Casey, we're recording this on Friday, December 28th. 2023 has been one crazy year. For the first time in American history, a former U.S. president has been indicted multiple times on criminal charges. Of course, I'm talking about Donald Trump, who faces not one, not two, not even just three, but 4 criminal indictments tallying nearly 100 separate charges. Despite that, Trump is far and away the frontrunner for the Republican nomination for president heading into an election year in 2024. At the same time, the sitting president, Democrat Joe Biden, faces an impeachment inquiry into allegations he participated in and benefited from his son's sketchy overseas business dealings. Biden, who is 81 years old, he also faces questions about his age and his mental and physical capacity as he seeks re-election next year. Casey, let's face it, these major headlines that dominated the news cycle this year are only going to grow as 2024 gets underway. There is seemingly new news breaking regularly on all of these fronts. Bring us up to speed, Casey.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, the news cycle did not take the holidays off. We can say that for sure. Both former President Trump and current President Joe Biden are facing their own legal issues that will carry well into the new year, 2024, which of course is an election year for the president. So we have, major unfoldings, of course, in Colorado, and you've alluded to some of this, and Michigan, where respective Supreme Courts have decided one in favor and one against of removing Trump from the ballot. Now, I think it's not beyond the pale at all to say we can expect to see similar rulings coming out of other states.
Similar contradictory rulings, because Colorado's kicked him off the ballot. Michigan's Supreme Court has not. In Colorado, that's going to be appealed, of course. I'm sorry, Casey, go ahead.
No, it's good. I accept your apology, Dan. No, it's totally fine. It's a good point to make. When we're going to see this probably play out in other states, at least the legal challenges be filed. There's plenty of people who have an axe to grind, both in the Republican and the Democratic Party, against the former president, Donald Trump. The interesting caveat, though, is, and we've reported about this at the centersquare.com, is that this Colorado ruling, there's a good chance it's actually going to go to the Supreme Court will hear it and take it up. And so, or a similar ruling, or combine all of these rulings and decisions and cases into one decision where the Supreme Court settles it for all 50 states. Now, there is a sort of deadline because in Colorado, the first week of January, the Secretary of State for Colorado has to certify the ballot, right? That's the deadline that their state has to certify the ballot. And so there is a sort of impetus, a fast-tracking potential of this ruling because of Colorado's deadline for certification of the ballot. So, and whatever they rule there would have broad implications. If the Supreme Court shuts down Colorado's decision, it'll probably put this issue to rest. The states will know that they can't remove Trump from the ballot this time around because of his alleged ties to January 6th. But if the Supreme Court allows what Colorado did to fly, either by, agreeing with them or just by deciding not to rule on the issue, which is very possible, they're going to open up the floodgates to a lot of other states trying to do the same thing. And the question will be, one, how many of the states that try and succeed in removing Trump are actually swing states? Because, there's some states Trump probably is never going to win. So if he's not on the ballot, it's not going to make or break the race. But a state like Michigan, which is one that, has decided in Trump's favor, that could be a big swing state for Trump, and a state that he did win when he beat Hillary Clinton in 2016. So which state is doing what will matter, which is a battleground state, and how the Supreme Court rules is all going to kind of swirl together here into a very significant case for 2024.
Yeah, let's talk about some of those swing states, Casey. A new Morning Consult poll that we reported on at thecentersquare.com this week has Trump with some leads over Biden in those states, including in Michigan, including in Wisconsin, including in Arizona and North Carolina, all swing states, and Georgia. as well. That doesn't, granted, we're still, the presidential election is November 2024, still about 10 months away from that time. But as of right now, Trump seems to have an advantage.
Yeah, and it's probably no surprise that this is why we're maybe seeing some of these legal challenges. Of course, there's a lot of attention put on the president's overall approval rating. Of course, President Biden is underwater on his approval rating. More voters disapprove of the job he's doing than approve. I wrote at thecentersquare.com about a Monmouth University poll, which found, I believe, a record low 34% approval rating for the president. So he's hitting a new low. There's a lot of attention put on that, and for good reason. And in the national polling, Biden leads Trump actually by a few points on the national polling. But what really matters the most is, as you said, these swing state polls, because Republicans have done it a couple times now, where you can lose the popular vote and still win the White House. And so it doesn't really matter if you have a couple of points lead in the national poll against someone if they can beat you at all the swing states, which is kind of President Biden's problem right now. As you said, who decides what's a swing state is a little bit arbitrary, but North Carolina, Georgia, Wisconsin, Nevada, Michigan, Arizona, and Pennsylvania, the 7 swing states where Biden is trailing. And it's an average of about a little over 5 percentage points, which for most polls is more than the margin of error. I mean, that's one metric, is how many states? 7, which would really be a rout of President Biden. If he lost all 7 of those states, it would be a cleanup. Some of those states are states that Trump lost last time around, right? Arizona, for example, where Trump is winning, that's a state that he lost. So in Georgia, for instance, it's a state where Republicans have really suffered in recent years. In the Senate, for example, what could be thought of as maybe a red or purple state has 2 Democratic senators in Georgia. So these are definitely swing states, toss-up states where Trump is doing well, even where he didn't do as well in 2016. So this is definitely, and it's not within the margin of error, more than 5 points. So it's a big deal.
And as I mentioned up front, too, you've got the impeachment inquiry into President Biden ongoing in the U.S. House, controlled by a slight majority of Republicans. You've got these criminal cases against President Trump. There's going to be developments in all of these things as 2024 gets underway. So who knows what happens in those cases and how it affects voters and whether or not any voters are going to change their mind. For example, if Trump is convicted, or if Biden is, in fact, impeached. It's just, Casey, I've been covering presidential elections for a long, long time. 2024 is going to be far and away the most bizarre presidential election year that I can ever remember. I'll give you the final comment. Casey, we're just about out of time.
Yeah, I just want to throw in one quick news update here, which is that President Biden is under investigation now for whether he is allegedly interfering in the investigation into his son Hunter and overseas business dealings, which of course is the source of his impeachment inquiry. There's questions about how Hunter Biden may or may not have known about the subpoena that came to him ahead of time. So that investigation into the Biden family is ongoing. It seems every week there's a new update, a new piece of evidence that comes out, making that legal case stronger. And of course, the political argument against him, which is just the court of public opinion, even tougher for the current president.
Of course, listeners can keep up with all of these very important stories at thecentersquare.com. Thank you for being with us in 2023. We look forward to informing you further in 2024. For Casey Harper, I'm Dan McCaleb. Please subscribe. Thanks for listening.
Knowledge is power, and you deserve to know what happens in your state government. That's why the nonprofit Franklin News Foundation is bringing you straight news journalism through the Center Square, reporting on state authorities and publishing stories that show where your money goes and who spends it. By supporting the Center Square, you can track politicians' use of taxpayer money and demand transparency from elected officials. This is how we can equip everyday Americans to hold their government accountable. Become a supporter of Franklin today at franklinnews.org/donate.